Hey guys, Marco the dog trainer here. Today we're going to do a quick video on how to teach your dog to play fetch with this machine, ideally on their own. Okay, now normally I don't really do videos on dog training itself, just because there's so many different techniques out there and philosophies and opinions. So the only reason I felt open to doing it today is because this is more based around playing than it is like obedience or something more like that. Okay. So this video is not going to answer every single challenge you might run into, but it should be a really good starting point for how to begin this process of teaching your dog to play fetch on their own. Okay. So at its most basic sense, there's two really big factors that we need for training a dog: repetition and reward. Okay, so, or at least for this concept. So dogs are habit forming. If something happens enough times, they kind of can connect the dots. Just the same way that they figure out that the doorbell means somebody is here. The same way that when you grab their food bowl, they know they're probably getting fed. So the first thing is that we just need a lot of repetition. Now, luckily, in this particular situation, repetition is not anything that grueling. It's play. We just have to play with them with this machine to build up habits. Okay. Now the second piece is reward. And now again, every dog is a little different. So some dogs like food as a reward. Some are more physical or verbal reward. And some dogs, if you've watched my other video about this machine, are just so excited about fetch that that's the reward, is that you're throwing the ball and they get to chase it. So in a lot of dogs, it might be a combination of some of those or all of those, okay? The basic concept is if they do what you want, we need to add the rewarding, okay? So now, as we start to build these habits, we can kind of stack the habits in order to build up a progression that kind of turns into them just playing by themselves, okay? So let's break this into a few phases, okay? So phase one is maybe what we'll call drop it, okay? Is that you don't even need the machine for this. This could be something that you're just doing every time that you play fetch. Is that I usually cut my hands together and I'm trying to teach my dogs to drop it into my hands. Okay, now some dogs are going to drop it right into your hands very, very easily. Chances are, if you're watching this video, that's not happening. But if that's the case, then you can move on to step two. But for anybody struggling with this first concept, okay, so let's say they bring it over, but they're not dropping in your hands. Maybe they're dropping on the floor. Okay, so the first kind of technique is that I'm just going to kind of motivate them to figure it out. I'm not going to do it for them. I'm not going to pick it up. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to say, come on, drop it. No, come on, drop it. And if you keep motivating them, they kind of get frustrated enough that they just want to try something. So they might pick up the ball and drop it somewhere else. Okay, now that's the beginning of them trying to figure out what they need to do in order for you to throw the ball again or reward them. So that's kind of like one option. Okay, now some dogs, I might kind of help them where I'll put my hands under their mouth and say drop it, kind of trying to help them connect to drop it into my hands. Sometimes I might, if they keep dropping it on the floor, I might just put my hands down on the floor, trying to get them to drop it into my hands. And then some dogs, I might even just kind of catch it when they drop it. And if you're really struggling here and there, I may even pick up the ball, put it into my hands, and just say drop it. Because the main thing we're trying to connect here is drop it into my hands. Okay, and if your dog's not dropping the ball, that can be a little trickier, but you might just have to kind of grab the ball and say, no, come on, drop it, and kind of pull it out of their mouth. Okay, so that's going to be phase one, is drop it. Okay, now, once we've got that, like I said, just do that every time you're playing fetch, and eventually they'll figure it out. Okay, now step two is that we need to start putting our hands over the machine, because that's ultimately where we want them to drop it. Now, again, you can use whatever terminology you want. I'm just saying drop it and drop it in because that's what I use, okay? So now when I start moving to the machine, I kind of say drop it in, drop it in, because that's what I'm going to say eventually when I further into this progression, okay? Now, same concept. If they're not dropping it in over here, same techniques. I might, say, no, come on, drop it in, and kind of just wait until they're frustrated enough that they keep trying new things. Sometimes I might, again, put my hands next to the machine and kind of scoop it up, drop it in, and kind of put it here and drop it in. Sometimes if I really have to, I'll pick it up, put it in my hands, and just kind of hold it there. So same techniques from phase one in order to help them drop it into the machine, okay? Now, phase three is that we want to start taking one of our hands away. Now it's more, we're going to be kind of turning it into more of like a point, okay? And I should have added in phase two. Sometimes I may like tap the machine to help draw their attention to dropping in here. If your dog is more food motivated or something like that, you might be able to put a treat over here, just depending on what works best for your dog. But now phase three is that we're trying to make it more like they're dropping into the machine as opposed to my hands. So, so sometimes I may point, come on, drop it in, come on. Or, but that's what you're working on there. Now that's phase three, is you're kind of turning it more into pointing at the machine as opposed to them dropping into your hand. Okay, and now the next phase is that we want to start incrementally getting further and further away from the machine. So once that looks good, then you may have to stand up. And now I'm just trying to get my hand further away from the machine. Drop it in, drop it in. Now, as that's getting better, I'm going to start moving further away. Drop it in. Okay, now, and a lot of times, this is where you're close, but you're still going to have to kind of supervise them because they still think that you're a big part of playing fetch with them. So now if they keep bringing the ball over to you, I'm just saying, no, come on. And I'm going to move back over to the machine, drop it in, drop it in. Okay, now that's really the basic principle or the basic progression of habits we're trying to build up. Okay, now let's just talk through like a couple challenges that you might run into. Okay, so we already talked about what to do if they're not dropping it into your hands. You can either motivate them to figure it out, or you can kind of help them a little bit by kind of doing it for them to help connect the dots by either scooping it up or kind of just throwing your hands underneath to catch it, or picking it up and putting it into your hands. So that's what you're going to be mainly doing for dropping it into your hands and dropping it into the machine. Okay, now as you start to get further away, they might be bringing the ball over to you. Again, just move back over to the machine. And sometimes you may have to almost go back a couple steps, that like you walk back over to the machine. If you're pointing at it and they're not doing it, you might have to go back to putting your hands back over the machine, okay? Now, the next thing that you might run into is, okay, so there's an automatic sensor on here that it won't throw the ball if the sensor is registering that the dog's in front of it. So again, you can use whatever terminology you want. I was kind of using two different things. So the first one I was using is what I was calling like out of the way. And what I would do is anytime they were in front of the sensor and it wasn't registering, I would say, no, out of the way. And I'd kind of push them either to the left or to the right. So that way they could start to figure out that if it's not throwing, I need to move out of the way and then it will throw. Okay, and then the other thing I was doing is like, because technically the sticker on here says that it wants the dogs to back up 7 feet. Most dogs are going to be so excited about this, they're not going to back away 7 feet. But if you wanted to build that up, anytime that they're too close to the machine, no, back it up, and you kind of grab them and physically move them back and kind of wait with them until it throws. Same idea. They might start to figure out over time that if I back away, this thing's going to throw it faster. Another challenge I was running into was that my dog kept like hitting the machine because he was just so excited for it to come out that he's like pawing at it and knocking it. And I was just using an off command, basically, no, off, and I'd kind of pull him off the machine. Again, the same concept being that he will learn that it's not going to throw if you keep knocking it. You have to back away for it to throw. Okay. Another challenge that I had, I don't know if this is going to be a common one for you guys out there, is that my one dog kept putting the ball in here. And that was a pretty frustrating one because what happens is when they put it in through the front, the sensor doesn't register that the ball's in there. So anytime I saw my dog going to the front, I'd kind of grab his collar, no, drop it in. And I'd kind of direct him to doing it on the top. Okay. And then let's see, is there any other main things that I was thinking about? Those were probably the main challenges that I was running into. Now, like I said, there could be a couple different challenges out there that I don't cover in this video, but this is more as a good starting point, okay? Now, what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to add a little bit of footage of my one dog that I'm working with that still hasn't entirely connected to do this on his own. So that way I can kind of point out the different techniques that I was talking about and when I'm doing them. And if there's one other thing that I should just say as an overarching thought is don't rush it. Like really stick at each phase until it looks pretty good. Because if you're moving too fast or you're just trying to like leave the room and let your dog do it on their own, that's where you're going to run into a lot more problems. So a lot of times you're really going to be stuck in this like supervision phase for a while because that's what's actually teaching your dog how to use the machine. So they're not running into constant problems when you leave the room. And just for a frame of reference, I think my poodle, who are kind of notorious for being pretty smart dogs, he figured this out playing by himself probably in 5 or 6 sessions. And my other dog, I more recently introduced this toy to him. He's probably played with it a good 10 times, and he's a lot closer to being automatic, but I still have to kind of watch him and supervise him because he's the one that keeps trying to like knock the machine and put it in through the front and get in the way of the sensor. So really just don't rush it. But okay, so let's get into a little bit of footage so I can show you this in action, and then we'll probably wrap up the video from there. Okay, so I'm realizing that I don't have a bunch of good footage for phase 1 and phase 2 because by the time this idea occurred to me to record this video, I had already kind of been through that. But I am remembering like a little trick that I was using kind of mixed into phase 1 and phase 2. Is that if we're having trouble getting our dog to connect that the ball needs to fall into the machine or into our hands, some of the time I would just take the ball and put it in my hand and I would hold it above the machine. And I was kind of using that frustration technique of like motivating my dog until they're at a point that they're just trying to do anything. And eventually he would take his muzzle and kind of knock the ball out of my hand into the machine. And that was starting to help connect the dots that if the ball falls into the machine, that it's going to end up getting thrown. Okay, so that's a good little trick that I should have added in that will be really, really helpful for phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, now we're going to go over this video that I was watching, or of me playing with him last week. Okay, so that was the last time I played with him. And then the second video we're going to watch is from today. Which were the last 2 times that I've played with him. Okay, so this video here is me kind of using that frustration technique, I hate to call it that, to help him figure out that he needs to do something in order for that ball to get thrown. So you can tell that he doesn't exactly know where the ball needs to go, but he's trying.
Come on, drop it. Come on, drop it. Come on.
And every so often you may see me tap. Okay, there we go. A little bit of verbal reward. And at this point, I did not do a whole bunch of like backup or out of the way because I was really mainly focused on him connecting that the ball needs to drop into the machine. Once he gets that, then I start to work a little bit more on getting him out of the way.
Come on. No. No. Over here. Come on. Enzo. Or Cosmo, come on. No. Come on. Over here. Good boy. Good boy.
Yeah, and I think I was actually lucky enough to get it on camera,
Okay,
like
come on,
him
drop it.
actually connecting the dots, because
No,
I think this
drop
was the day that he actually started to connect, dropping the ball into
No,
the
come
machine.
on. Good boy. Come on. Over here. Drop it. Good boy. Hey. Hey, hey. Okay, come on. Drop it. Over here. Come on. Drop it. Come on. Over here. No, no, no. Come on.
And
Hey.
you can see
Over here.
in the span of that little,
Good
like, you know,
boy.
1 or 2 minute video, you can see that it was really speeding up. Okay, now, this is us moving more into end of phase 2 into phase 3, trying to get a little bit further away. But you're going to see that as you start, like every time that, you know, so like I said, this video is from today. The last time I played with him was a week ago. So every time you pick back up, you might have to start a couple steps behind and kind of remind him before you can kind of keep moving to the next phase. Okay, and you see that my hands are cupped over the machine, kind of back at step 2. Okay, and that's me moving him out of the way. Okay, and I want to point out that towards the beginning of this video, you're going to see that he's constantly in front of the machine, and I keep having to move him over to the right. But by the end of this video, you're going to see that he's automatically going to the right just through the repetition. And there's a few times that he ends up, when he's scratching at the machine, he ends up turning it off, and I didn't realize it. So if I were to do this over again, I probably would have reversed it, that I was on the right side and he was on the left, just to minimize the amount of times that he's, you know, scratching the on and off switch. Because it's on the right, I should have probably had him on the left.
No.
And another thing that, like trick that I'm realizing that I was doing here is that Cosmo is the dog that keeps trying to put the ball in the front hole instead of the top. So every so often you'll see when he's coming over, I kind of put my hand in front of that to kind of stop him from doing that. And I should also point out that when you're practicing or trying to do this, make sure your dog's wearing a collar or something like that, so you have some type of way to kind of get a hold of him and direct him or her.
Good boy. Okay, drop it in.
Yep, there's me blocking the hole and tapping the top to kind of redirect him there. And make sure you're being consistent with your terminology so they can connect what your words mean.
No. Out of the way.
And I use no as my word for like, hey, you're making a mistake. That's not right.
Good boy. Good job.
Okay, and like I said, this session that we're watching right now was probably about 10 minutes total. Okay, and I didn't say this yet, but you can see that I'm subtly starting to move a little bit further away from the machine, and I'm more so pointing at it instead of having my hands cupped over it. Okay, and now I'm standing up and moving a couple feet away, but dogs are kind of funny with proximity, that if you start getting further away, things kind of get sloppier. So anytime he's making the mistake, I step back in to kind of hold him accountable and help him fix it. And then I move back to where I was. And that was when one of the times he turned the machine off.
No. Okay, drop it in. No. Good boy.
Okay, it's starting to clean up a little bit now.
Good boy. Okay, come on. Drop it in. No. There you go.
There we go. You can hear my other dog whining because he hears the fetch machine in the background.
No.
Alright, and now I think I'm starting to work on getting like 5 feet away.
Good boy.
There we go.
Good job.
Okay.
Good boy.
Yep, and now again I'm adding that distance. And that is the true beginning of him actually figuring out how to do this without me standing right next to him. Okay, and then you'll see, I think by the very end, in the next like minute or so, he actually starts playing on his own, and I was able to kind of walk into a different room. And now if I were going to do this again, I'd probably have to start over a couple steps, but it should move a little faster and a little bit easier. And then each time you do it, it should start to become a little bit more automatic. Yeah, there he does it. Perfect. Yeah, my other dog, Enzo, he is not happy. He wants to be playing too. There it is, okay? So I hope this video was helpful. It can be a little bit of a tricky concept, but just be patient, have fun. Remember that this is a game. You know, a little bit of practice and repetition will go a long way. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.